All right, I hope you all got the notification. All right, and we're this is 7 people, maybe 9. I can, yeah, 9 people. Nice. All right, yeah. Well, let's get this started. You can see the kind of first meeting agenda and notes in front of me. Every time we'll be using this this pad here, and at the start we'll always, so we have a kind of record of the meetings. We'll know to record the meeting. That will be me this time. Recording link, this will later be filled in. Currently this goes just on Dropbox, but later hopefully live stream to the Nixpkgs YouTube channel. Then meeting notes. Ideally, I'm going to try my best here. I'm not super used to taking meeting notes, but I'll try my best. And then also who leads the meetings, so we know how to make progress. And you're free to always jump in and give your opinion if you have something to say. This is just the first time we're doing this. I kind of made the first draft for this team, but I'm willing to have any organizational or structural changes to see what the best approach would be. Right, and so that's, I think, what we should do in the beginning. We should just go over this organizational draft in the beginning and kind of see if there's some bigger problems with it, if you have any suggestions, any improvements, to really not make, to have a good foundation as a start. Yeah, right, and maybe make any changes if that's needed. Does it sound good? Otherwise, we'll jump into this. All right. So, right, general structure of this, we start with the motivation. That's kind of like, why did I start with this, and what motivates me to do this? So, right, Nixpkgs is kind of one of the biggest, has a lot of value to essentially all Nix users. Without Nixpkgs, we wouldn't be here today, and most companies, like most people, wouldn't be using Nix. So it really has a lot of value, but there's a lot of problems with it. It's inconsistent in many ways. There's missing features. People complain about various things all the time. And at this point, nobody can really do much about these problems. Nixpkgs has kind of grown to such a big scale that even if a single user tries to do some good change, it probably just gets stuck in PRs. They can't, the contributors or the people merging PRs can't decide such large things themselves. And so that's where I thought that a team like this would be really useful, where we can make these decisions. We can discuss these problems in the team, not just a single person, and then actually make progress on these problems. Yeah, and then so I think that's the general notion here. Yes. Right. If someone disagrees with the general idea of this or has any improvements, shout now. All right. Sounds pretty good. I feel like many people in the community have had similar kind of have shared the same problems and have kind of noticed that, right, bigger things aren't really getting implemented anymore. And right, so let's jump to the next section, the goals of the team. Right, the main goal is really fixing these problems. And I wrote this down here as a very general thing. The goal of the team is to make interactions with Nixpkgs a joy. So interactions comes in many forms. Like people use Nixpkgs, they learn about it, they contribute to Nix packages. They debug things with Nix packages. Just making these all be generally enjoyable and that they make sense and that people can rely on them. And the way in which we should achieve this is to make clean, consistent, and future-proof solutions. So Nix packages currently feels like a whole bunch of hacks cobbled together, and we don't want to build on top of these hacks. We want to fix problems at their root so that we have a clean and a nice and a future-proof foundation. Right, and this is really to ensure that Nix packages also has like a long future ahead of itself, and we can really fix problems once and have them work for hopefully forever. And I want this team to be very, very kind of analytical and be very strict in finding, in formulating problems, finding solutions to these problems, analyzing the solutions, trying to come up with counter arguments for why solutions might be a bad idea, to make evaluations of ideas, to measure performance of solutions, things like this. So it shouldn't just be a argument-based thing where I have this opinion, you have the other opinion, one opinion is better and that's it. No, it should be, we evaluate opinions, we really try our best to make progress in a analytical way, maybe. And this is later described as well. And one of the, well, we'll get to that later. And then something I also wrote down here is that we need to ensure backwards compatibility. We can't just make a big change to Nix packages and then be like, yep, that's it, the old way breaks. There's really a lot of third-party usages of Nix packages, and we can't just break all of these. So that's really important, I think. And this is, if we do need to make backwards incompatible changes, we need a deprecation window and an appropriate warning to make sure people have time to migrate. Yeah, does this sound good to people? Otherwise,
sounds good. So,
all right.
What I think here is, you explained analyzing and benchmarking and things like that, but it doesn't really tell here in the text. I don't know if the process section explains that better, but it says here, gather and analyze feedback from users, which is...
Yeah, this is... yeah, this is explained a bit better in the process section. I guess we'll get to that a bit later. Yeah, right. This is meant to be, I guess, a bit more general than that. But yeah, good point. I guess if there's nothing else to complain, we can look at the next section here, which are some concrete examples. These are just a sample. We aren't going to work on exactly these problems, but these are kind of things that motivated me, as in like, these have been really annoying over time and I want them to be improved. I don't want to spend too long on this, but perhaps many people have different opinions here and can take a look at them. So there's, of course, I think almost everybody knows about this, the whole override mess, where there's a ton of ways to override package sets and various ones apply depending on what set it is. We want consistency in that people who come into Nix aren't going to wonder about which override mechanism do I need to use. It should be very easy to use. Next to that, something I've been recently playing around with is the whole versioning of packages. There's Python 2, Python 2.7, FFmpeg normal, FFmpeg full. There's all these special attributes for various versions and variants of packages. And this is really confusing to people, like when I want a specific version of a package, what do I need to use? In general, there is no support for this, but sometimes there is an attribute, but it's just very done in a very ad hoc way, and there's various problems related to this. Another one is make derivation, which is kind of focused on C. Makefiles, very outdated. There's some problems with attributes getting stringified and turned into environment variables. Phases are finicky. They how to override phases. There's some problems relating to that, and some other bits and bobs that make derivation and builders in general could be overhauled a bit to make them better and be more consistent with each other, to maybe support having multiple languages easily supported in a single derivation. That's something kind of hard to do right now. Then meta information for packages like broken licenses, supported platforms. There's some revisions to be done there, which are kind of hard to do. The file structure, we discussed this a bit in the Nixpkgs architecture chat, about how all packages is really hard for new contributors to navigate. How also the packages directory, like where should new users where should new packages go? There's like a whole special directory structure in there, which doesn't have any conventions, really. It's fairly ad hoc. Then also in general, backwards compatibility and deprecation of packages. Extending this to function arguments, that's not a huge point, but it popped up when I thought about it. Then Nixpkgs is becoming such a big repository that it's hard for maintainers to maintain their packages. For all the committers to Nixpkgs have a hard time reviewing all the PRs. So maybe we can discuss splitting up Nixpkgs into multiple repositories. There's a lot of arguments for and against it. We can really take a look at these and try to see if there's a good solution, if that's something we can't do or can do. And then it also kind of ties into this. The documentation of the code in Nixpkgs is really bad. People, it's essentially impossible to learn about Nixpkgs without going into the source code and reading all of it and seeing what it does. And that's really pretty bad for new users. Right, and these are the kind of goals I wrote down, but maybe you have some others you can think of. I think this would be a good time to kind of, if there's a big one I missed, or if you have other ideas, to quickly mention them.
I'd like to throw one up.
Yep.
Right now, one of the biggest problems I have with Nixpkgs is that a single broken package in your entire system is makes it incredibly difficult to move forward. So for example, I depended on Jammy, and they started using the Qt version, and Qt web engine was broken. So this one package that I use maybe once a week, meant that if there was a critical SSH upgrade, I can't easily get that, right? I either have to remove this package, I have to manually roll it back, something like that. I think there's a lot of value to Nixpkgs shipping as a huge snapshot. But right now, packages break and we don't really do anything to stop it. And then that causes users a lot of problems. So I think if we can get some sort of mitigations or solutions here, that would be huge. I'll refrain from talking about some of the things I have in progress to fix this, but I just want to put that as an item to consider.
And an issue that sorry.
No, that's a good point. Go ahead.
An issue that I have seen is that it's very difficult to go from overriding Nixpkgs to actually submitting changes to Nixpkgs. Overlays are really incompatible with patching, and I'd like to see that workflow become more consistent to make it easier for regular users to contribute.
Yeah, that's also a good idea. Right, because writing an overlay is kind of can't directly be translated to a PR. Yeah, sounds great. I'll write these things down here and probably gonna add them either also to the main document, or we can also add them in another document. Anybody else have any suggestions or comments about these problems? Yorick?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right place for this, but the issue that I created about system agnostic builders could be expanded to, in general, more composability of the builders. Like, for example, right now we cannot easily split phases into separate derivations if we need to. It requires a lot of work, essentially. But it would be great if we were able to do this. I understand that this would require essentially more work on the Nix side as well as on Nixpkgs side, but maybe we should mention something in all these lines here as well.
Yeah, I guess this goes a bit into the thing I mentioned with stdinf.make derivation, kind of revising that.
Yes.
Yeah, but the system agnostic is also interesting. There's, I think, an issue you opened about
Yes.
kind of, because currently if you want to write a derivation that just does something very simple, like combine a bunch of files, you need to depend on stdinf to even get like CP and ls and utilities like that. I think Yuri's suggestion was to, oh yeah, thanks for the link, was to kind of make this allow system agnostic builders. And I think the idea was to use, what was it?
WASM.
WASM, yes.
Or WASM, WASI. But also, like, we could expand this into, like, essentially generating builders from Nix code, but in Nixpkgs, and that will be essentially very composable, I think. So
yeah, I think this might be a bit outside of the scope of this team, since it relates a lot to Nix itself. We can't, right? We are kind of Nix developers, you could call us, and this goes more into C++.
yeah, but like,
but I guess it
has
to kind of integrate.
Thing will be very intrusive for this, so that's why I think maybe it would warrant the attention of this team, essentially.
I guess, yeah, we'd have to work with Nix developers for this. Yeah, but that sounds like an idea. Anything else someone wants to mention regarding examples of what we can work off, or also ideas?
Yeah, I think maybe it's not that big of a project, but for cross-compilation, there is like a lot of differences between native compilation and cross-compilation, and I think it would be good if we somehow work out how we can bring those closer together to also get more compatibility there. And not only cross, but also I think the same counts for static compilation, which is basically does a lot of the same things. I think there's something to gain there.
What exact issues are you currently having? Because it's fairly well supported. I guess next step would be to use like LLVM. But
I guess it's also about like figuring out, or like someone just kind of running it and reporting problems. And I guess for these different compilation strategies, there are different fixes and patches required?
Actually, we could like test some couple of cross-compilation options, since, for example, I too had an issue package breaking during cross-compilation because it was just not tested properly.
You're saying to I didn't quite get that, to test?
So like one of the options would be to test common cross-compilation options. So for example, from x86 to arch64 or something. I had one case where this was an issue because incorrectly specified dependencies.
You mean the fact that it's not built by Hydra makes it a non-blocker?
Could you repeat that?
I think the problem here is that it's not built by Hydra, right? So
Yeah.
it's not a release blocker.
Yep.
And it could be. Maybe.
Well, it's like building all the packages is probably not the right way to approach this. But I don't know, maybe
Right, but
some
just
common ones or something.
yeah, like Hydra already built some Darwin packages before releasing like the unstable channel. Something like that could be done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
I am not that concerned with that part of cross-compilation, more that in some cases, for example, what we're doing is we're prefixing package config with some like string to distinguish it from the native package config. And that's like different from native compilation where we don't prefix it. And there are like quite a bit of those differences when you also, for example, strict depths is enabled when you start doing cross compilation. So there is quite a bit of like differences when you compile for another what do you call it, host platform.
Yeah.
So it would be nice.
So I guess it's more about it being kind of hacky, implemented hackily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, another issue with cross-compilation came to mind. So for derivation to be cross-compilation compatible, we must use call package on it, since it attaches like extra outputs, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like
yes.
Sub-derivations, not sure how to call it.
Yeah, right. Call package needed for cross-compilation to work. Spliced packages.
Yeah.
I think that's a big smell in Nixpkgs currently.
I think splicing is an interesting topic to tackle as an architecture team, at least.
Yep.
So maybe
there's
the strict depths could be one thing to discuss.
Strict depths. Yeah, so that that makes like native bill inputs and bill inputs concrete, like makes them more strict.
Wouldn't that guarantee that, even if the person who adds a package did not test it with cross compilation, or would, I'm not sure if it would give us any better guarantees.
I think sometimes yes. But yeah, and I guess related to that is the structured address, which is about not just allowing strings to be propagated into derivations, but also like JSON structures.
Yeah, I was building like custom builders the other day, and I was like straight up passing a file there.
Yeah. All right,
well,
but
I think
let's
structured attributes goes up into that point about code derivation, stringifying everything in the doc.
Yeah. Good point. All right. Let's continue along. I think we already have like a big list, unless there's still big ones we missed. let's continue. Ash, feel free to talk.
I have a smaller one, but I found that like using NixOS has sort of interfered with traditional development workflows somewhat. So like if I'm just checking out a Git repo and trying to build it, like how do I get a MinGW W64 GCC cross toolchain in my path? Like things that are available in builders easily, especially cross compilation tools, are like pretty difficult to get outside of builders.
I was thinking about this the other day, and like maybe it would be cool to have some sort of repository with like dev shells, like with common presets, just so you could just quickly link it up and be done with it.
As in like part of NixOS?
So ideally it would be part of Nixpkgs, but like what I was thinking about, just grabbing like numtile dev shell, whatever you call it, and building certain pieces, one for Java, one for cross compilation, another one for Rust, and so on. So for project specific, maybe I don't know. Toolchain actually.
Yeah, that sounds like an option. There's also something I thought of. There's been PRs to NixOS which kind of add like a lib directory, so that a lot of like standard executables you can download from a line actually just work on NixOS at the cost of it kind of being impure at that point and people not motivating.
Yeah, I'm actually linking a dynamic linker like this, and I don't think we should add this. Like the only thing that it may achieve is like lower PR's quality.
Yes. Yeah. That's. I also don't think that's a good idea, but it is something we could do to make some things easier. All right. But yeah, that sounds like something. So NixOS, in general, I think NixOS is already in a fairly good place regarding like how clean it is and how like there's not a whole lot of problems regarding NixOS. And so I think the goal of this team should maybe be more focused on the whole package set structure. I think that's where most problems are. But yeah, I think like since NixOS is under Nixpkgs, it would also be in scope. And I, assuming we have like essentially most hard problems and bigger problems fixed in Nixpkgs, and the package set especially, we can probably also focus more on NixOS. All right, I think let's continue in the document here. So we talked about the goals. I also wrote one specific non-goal here. That is, I mean, there is a problem for this in Nixpkgs, but reviewing and merging like trivial or easy PRs is not our goal. Instead, we should. That's kind of. It feels to me like fixing a problem at the symptoms and not at the root. Like if the contribution pipeline is too long, we should try to improve the pipeline to maybe split Nixpkgs to make things easier or things like that. There's not a lot of other non-goals here. Do you maybe have an opinion about what we shouldn't do in this team? If not, let's continue.
The list could be almost infinite, what we will not do here.
Yeah, I guess it's more like things that could be understood that this team will be doing but that we don't actually want to do.
Let's add the right ponies.
I wouldn't mind doing that, but yes, that's all right. But yes, let's continue then. The next section here I described is a general process section. This was linked to earlier here, and so this is how we should go about actually fixing these problems. And so, right, this is a process from going out to an issue to solution. It shouldn't be a linear process, so this should be done in a feedback-oriented way. So we might try to state a problem, find some solutions, but then we go back to maybe refining the problem, discovering that we are solving the wrong thing. We might not reach consensus and go back to finding new solutions that we haven't considered before, things like that. Now, to actually track progress for an issue, I think we should use GitHub projects. I think, right, it's fairly easy to do. Many people are already familiar with it. All issue trackers suck, but GitHub doesn't suck as much as others, I think. Yeah, so there's 4 subsections here. Initially, problem statement. We want to really figure out what a specific problem is, when we consider the problem solved, what the root cause is, describe the problem, and really fixate that so we know what we are working with. Next is trying to find solutions for this problem. And there we should look at various kinds of solutions. We shouldn't just, we might have one initial solution, but there might be a lot of others we haven't considered yet. And then these solutions, we should evaluate them. I mentioned this before. We should develop prototypes, create test cases, surveying people, how much they would consider the solution to be good, things like that, measuring performance, things like that. We should also look at, we have a Nixpkgs is pretty big, and we can use this to our advantage to kind of see what solutions have been tried in the past in Nixpkgs. Did they work well? Did they not work well? Were they changed at some point? What did people think of it? Yeah, and we can use that to our advantage. Now, once we kind of have some solutions, we can try to reach consensus in the team. And so here is kind of where the team comes into play. I think the team members should be the ones reaching final consensus on a solution. But the team members should also take into account all the opinions of other people that have concerns and things like that. But the team will be kind of reaching final consensus on this. But I think so right now the team officially only consists of me. I have Tom, who isn't here, who mentioned he would join. But I'm kind of in this meeting, we should also kind of, I'm encouraging people to also join the team so we can really make this a bit more official. I by myself don't want to decide anything like that, and it wouldn't hold any weight if I did that myself either. By making this kind of an official team, we have some weight, and we can go. So this comes a bit later here. We can go to the next RFC process and really have it be accepted by an official process. And having a team behind this helps with this. But yeah, so reaching consensus, we should try to reach consensus. I don't like voting processes very much. And so I'm hoping, this is my hope at least, I'm not sure if it's going to work, that we can reach consensus. But this might need compromises. This might mean people need to really listen and talk to each other about solutions and arguments. And if we can't find consensus, we might need to go back to solutions and see, did we miss something? Is there a misunderstanding somewhere? Can we make everybody understand all the pros and cons of each solution, things like that? Right in the end, once we kind of have reached consensus, we are going to make a Nix RFC. in the official RFC process, and we're gonna try to fill the board there with shepherds from the team, but also where anybody else can also join the shepherds, of course. But at that point, it's more of a just making it official, because this team is not entirely official, at least right now. It could be integrated into the RFC process where this team can independently make decisions, but that's at least not the case right now. So this is just a final step for this. What do you think of this process? So this is a draft I made. I think myself that that's a good idea for how to go about this, but I'm willing to hear other opinions. Yes.
I actually think that maybe having less members on the team is a feature, because reaching a consensus across like even how many here? 10? Is it 10 of us here? Even around 10 people is hard. Way harder than
what is the feature you mentioned?
That the team doesn't have many members. Well, right now it's just one member. Of course, that's not great, but not having many members here is probably a good idea. Like, we can have a lot of people discussing stuff or providing options and solutions, but the number of people who decide if it's good for the team should not be huge.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Yes, and so, right, one of the requirements for joining the team, which I listed later down there, is I think fairly reasonable, but maybe controversial, and that is to kind of be able to discuss with reason. So because only if you can discuss with a reason, you can kind of understand arguments and be responsive to arguments, kind of rethink your own opinion, and only then it is kind of possible to reach consensus, I'd say. And so we don't want a person in the team that's always going to reject any solution that has kind of been reached and be the kind of yes. Yeah, JK?
Will people without reason say that they have reasoning abilities?
So right, that's kind of that's kind of hard to. It's kind of hard to know whether someone has a reason, and it's kind of also right. It's really hard to judge. But the idea is that it's kind of flexible. We allow people to join the team, but if we see after a time that they're always blocking the final decision, they're not listening to arguments, they aren't receptive don't want to compromise their opinion, then we might have to say that, okay, this person needs to leave the team.
Yeah, I think that, I guess reason, I wouldn't necessarily pick that word, because someone may utilize reason when it feels useful to their goals or whatever, but they may be abrasive or take things completely off topic or whatever. So yeah, I think most people would just instantly go, of course I reason, of course I critically think, but the question is, can you work well with others?
I also don't think that is being considered not being good fit is the one that is going to decide if he is being reasonable. So.
Wait, I didn't quite get that. The ones. Can you explain that again?
If someone is possibly being considered not being good fit, I don't think they will be the one deciding if they are being reasonable anyway. So.
Yes.
Yeah, I have said it as a joke, and also I think that the wording is that you are reasonable, but it would be someone else making the
You're being reasonable. It's kind of like being a lady. If you have to tell people, you're probably not.
Yeah, so it's I think it is it should be kind of a requirement for joining the team if the consensus wants to be reached, but it is really hard to judge this.
As for the wording, let me just take a page out of the call I had last Friday about consulting. And I think the way they said it is to prefer facts and first-hand experience over hearsay and opinion and emotions.
Yes, I think that's also kind of in this, right? I guess it goes into the whole, right? How to really think reasonable about the world. If you see something firsthand, you know it's true, but then when you hear it from somebody else, it might not be as true. And then third-hand information might be even less true. Goes into, I think that goes into reason.
I mean, all of us are here because we care about Nix and Nix packages. So obviously, some degree of emotions are already involved, and it's sometimes hard to keep them at bay when you're being contrary. Let's put it that way. And some disagrees with you.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say is you could have two people being completely reasonable, but they have different things that are important to them. Like there are reasons for splitting Nix packages into a million separate repos, and there are reasons to keep it in one huge mega repo. And a lot of this is going to be trade-offs rather than there's a clear answer and there is a clear wrong answer, and you just reason your way to the solution.
I think that kind of goes into the notion of people having different values. And so if I think one solution is better and you think the other solution is better, then we probably have some underlying value. Assuming you understand all the trade-offs, we probably have some underlying value difference where I value, I don't know, for example, backwards compatibility more and you value a clean solution more. And understanding that, I think, would be very useful then to really dig down and for people's experience, why they value this more than the other.
I also think having the opposing opinions or visions in one room is a good, it helps a lot with finding the right solution. Or at least the technically right solution.
Yeah.
Complete consensus tends to be a bit of a unicorn because of various reasons, some of which we've just touched upon. Probably because reminding everyone once in a while that the goal here is to make sure that Nix packages can continue to grow for the next 10 or 20 years, that it can continue to grow healthily, that it isn't going to get worse than it already is in regards to all of the concerns that everyone has been bringing up. And the goal here isn't to get brownie points or have your solution implemented or to absolutely adhere to everyone's principles. It's Nix packages itself is the goal here.
I also think that sometimes that means not reaching the optimal solution immediately. It's a lot of times it's better, I think, to have an iterative process where you might make a change that is not what everybody would like to be the best thing, but it's the thing that you can agree on right now, and it's better than the current thing. So getting something done is better than getting nothing done.
Also worth pointing out now, probably, we've already talked about this internally during initial review of all of this. That is that the vast majority of the problems that we're going to face here are actually social and not technical. Even if the unicorn of an absolutely technically superior solution shows its head, chances are you're going to have a harder time just convincing people of it.
Yeah. So I think if we go back to this, so reaching consensus, what do you think would be, like, do you think we should reword this to kind of indicate that consensus might be hard, but it should be just as close to consensus as possible, perhaps?
It's worth striving for. Like an absolute consensus on a solution would be the ideal outcome. We just need to realize that sometimes it just might not happen. And what do we do then?
Well, it feels like the goal for this reason argument for team members was for them to concede their point, concede their what's the word for it? Their point of view, essentially, what they think is better, for the sake of reaching a consensus. So, so that basically, if I don't like how other 5 members of the team what they like, I should be able to essentially say, okay, I said I'm in minority here, I agree.
Yeah, so kind of going to what is it? Compromise.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's going to be some degree of compromise. That's just unavoidable.
Yeah.
When there's more than one person in a room, there's going to be a disagreement anyway. So
a disagreement is good, and I think having to reach consensus about something will lead to a better process than half or like a 51% vote is the truth, because then you will just have 2 camps that say are oppose each other and don't talk to each other, or at least that's a possible outcome if you do voting.
Yeah, so does it? So I think that's a good idea to mention that we strive for consensus, but that it might be really hard to actually reach full consensus, and so we should be flexible. Does it sound good? All right, we have some upvotes.
Again, the goal here is to move Nixpkgs forward into the future, and as long as we all want that. We want what is best for Nixpkgs in the future. We should have a decent chance at reaching some kind of agreement, even if it involves some compromise.
All right, yeah, that sounds good. I'll try to reword the section a bit to not make consensus as important. That sounds good. I think let's continue on. So we have this process here. Are there any other ideas or concerns about this? Right, problem solutions, consensus, or something like consensus, discussing things, and then going back maybe if we don't have the final thing.
Before we leave, since there's only 10 minutes left, we should probably at least touch upon the fact that there needs to be the notion of a team and what it means to be on the team for someone, what is expected on the way in and or on the way out and while you're on it.
Yeah, sounds good. Right, so let's go to the next one. So teams, right, this is the thing about consensus above. The people in the team are there for kind of reaching the final decision. Maybe, again, not consensus, but as close as possible, with the common goal of bringing Nixpkgs forward. And right, these meetings and also the Matrix chat, I want this to be as public as possible. Anybody should be able to go in, say their opinion, listen in on others' opinions. So being outside of the team doesn't mean that you aren't being listened to and heard. I think it's good to listen to everybody. Now I made here the current team. I want to have a log of who joins the team, who leaves the team, just for logging, really. Other requirements for joining the team, I didn't want to make these too large, but just have general interest in kind of large-scale architecture of Nixpkgs. Being reachable through Matrix, I think it's good that Matrix is the primary channel of discussion and being able to reach everybody. Then the thing about reason, again, I think we might have to tone this down a bit. It's not like we can evaluate people based on that. But I think we can at least try to kind of use that as a when someone violates a reason and goes against everybody all the time, they should maybe leave the team. And I've had this criticism before, where before the kind of procedure for leaving and joining the team wasn't outlined, and someone complained about where if we don't have a procedure for someone leaving the team, there might just be members continually being in the team. There's no way to kind of kick them out if they're kind of compromised in a way. And so that's why I think having a process for leaving the team is a good thing. Now, some strong recommendations, but not necessities. Being able to have occasional audio and video meetings. I think it's really productive to have these meetings to get along quickly. And then have a GitHub account. So there's this GitHub organization, Nixpkgs architecture. And we kind of try to do everything in that. Yeah, Yuri?
It feels like having metrics and asynchronous communication in the same sentence feels weird to me, because like I understand that, well, we could, if we focus on GitHub, for example, if we translate the list of issues that we want to focus on into GitHub issues and discuss them in comments, it would be actually asynchronous. And what happens right now in metrics is very synchronous and it's hard to follow. So maybe we should emphasize asynchronous communication more here.
Let's see, here's so here's written asynchronous. Right, so you mean to also mention synchronous here, since matrix is right,
no,
can be
like, I mean, maybe we should actually focus not on metrics, but rather on GitHub, for example, so that we have more asynchronous communication, because like we are very disparate, like a set of very disparate people with different schedules and stuff.
I personally think matrix is pretty good for this, since it's very inclusive and very decentralized. You don't need a GitHub account for this.
I think what he means is that on Matrix you basically have one conversation at a time. So like currently there is a small conversation about restructuring Nixpkgs, and if we want something else, well, that's just a mess. So maybe we could use like GitHub or those alternatives to issues, conversations, or whatever it calls.
Discussions, yeah.
Discussions. So that would be an option.
I think, what if we use the new beta feature of Matrix where you can have threads?
It's actually a beta feature of Element, not Matrix.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, threads aren't great.
They're not great, especially if someone wants to come after the fact and catch up, because everything is hidden in a thread. It's not clear what actually transpired. And GitHub is okay. It is a structured form of asynchronous communication, which we definitely need. Matrix should be considered ephemeral. Anything that is older than 10 minutes might as well not exist, because nobody's going to scroll up anyway.
I think that's a good point. Let's use Git. Let's also, so in here I also mentioned other forums down here. So Matrix channel, Jitsi meeting. I think we should also, so I wrote down here that other forms of communication can be used as needed. And I think that's maybe good to emphasize a bit more. So we can also, I think we're free to use any communication method we want. If GitHub discussions are better for something, then I think that's also valid.
Should be okay, but Discourse is probably also fitting. Whatever works for people, I guess.
I'd like to second the emphasis for Discourse, because GitHub. Oh, was I supposed to raise my hand or something? I joined the meeting late. Maybe I won't.
It's okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, long discussions in GitHub issues or even in GitHub's new discussions just don't work very well. We see this with RFCs, where you go and load an RFC and almost all of the comments are hidden, and you have to keep clicking a thing to load more comments and load more comments in the middle. And that's not a problem that Discourse has. You can like search within a thread natively in Discourse, and so like GitHub issues and discussions are fine for short discussions, but for big like discussions that I imagine this group is going to be having in regards to architecture and stuff, I think using GitHub would be a miserable experience.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think I'll make Discourse be more pronounced in there. Tom joined as well. He wants to say something. Tom, hello.
Hello. Yeah, I want to ask about clarity on team. So if we are going to have a team, I think normally to avoid it just being pure discussion or decision making, but to have it clear what's the responsibilities of the team and also what are the authorities of the team. Right, because if you have one without the other, it tends to degrade very quickly. Right, if you have authority without responsibility, that's bad, and if you have responsibility without authority, that's also bad. And if you have neither, then well, then it's just a hangout session. Right, so to actually make the team productive.
I see. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So kind of, I don't know, I'm thinking of like people signing on decisions to kind of say that I'm okay. I accept this decision. Things like that, maybe for responsibility.
Often responsibility includes things like in open source world, it's like long-term maintainership. Like, hey, we accept this thing, and I'm willing to maintain it and fix bugs over time. That's often implied in open source PRs in some sense.
Yeah, sounds good. I guess let's. Ash, you want to say something?
Yeah, as far as authority, I guess the authority would be like our end product is creating RFCs for Nixpkgs, and then like implementing them actually.
Authority kind of comes from the responsibility. If you're willing to take the responsibility of long-term maintainership, then you have the implied authority to make decisions on it because it's your problem.
Yeah, I guess it also ties a bit into like just in general commit access. Like someone needs to actually commit things, and for example, if you need to change Nix, that gets pretty hard. But Nixpkgs, I think we have some people in the team that do have commit access.
Yeah, I never got to that.
Anyways, I think we're about out of time. I do quickly want to kind of mention Tom. He mentioned before that he wants to be the first additional member to the team. We haven't made it through the whole list here, but there's a procedure for joining the team. So like the correct access is given, for example, to the GitHub account, and for it to be logged correctly. Tom, can you maybe kind of go through that yourself so we kind of have a good example of new team members doing this, and then I'll add you to the team list and stuff like that. Sound good?
Yeah, I can probably get to that this afternoon.
All right, sounds good. And I'm also encouraging anybody else to join the team. You've kind of seen maybe how that goes, and maybe also the future people involved in this. Leave me a message in Matrix or mainly Matrix. But yeah, otherwise, I think next time we'll maybe quickly go through the rest here. I'll try to revise the document a bit with the feedback I've had today. And hopefully next time we can also go more into the technical aspects and actually focus on the actual problems and solutions. Yeah, pretty much that. Thanks for joining then. And I wish everybody a nice afternoon. afternoon/evening.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah, someone's holding up hand. Why is NDR?
Sorry, that's just my inability to use this tool. I wanted to clap. I couldn't clap.
Oh yeah, I just did the same. Oh my, there's sound effects. Alrighty, I'll stop them. Stopping the recording. How do I do that? Here we go.